Hi, this is Judy Peterson from Peterson Travel Pros. It's time for Travel Talk. I just got back from a trip to Japan and I want to share it with you. It was such an awesome trip, not only because of the scenery, but because of the people, the food, the culture, and the entertainment. I want to start out by telling you that we flew into Narita Airport, and in Narita they have a small little village, and it was a perfect way to start out my trip. We walked down the streets and we saw the small shops and the restaurants, and after walking about 30 minutes we came to a beautiful temple. It was gorgeous. So if you're in Tokyo at the Narita Airport, make sure that you stop in the city and see this temple. It is beautiful. Well, that was just one temple I saw. There are a lot of temples in Japan. And I want to start out by showing you a picture of a girl at a shrine. And this is at Fushimi Inari. She is so mesmerized by what she's looking at. You see these columns coming down and they make walkways, and she's thinking about how far can I walk before I'm on the other side. It's quite a ways. This is in the countryside and it's worn and weathered, but it's a small temple, and there are thousands of temples in Japan, and you can see the contrast of the big ones and the small ones. And the ones in the countryside are very peaceful. It's nice to go there, meditate, and to pray. Okay, our next picture is the one that is lit up, and this is gorgeous. They're not all lit up at night, so if you're planning on going to see a temple in the evening, make sure that you check the internet and see that they are lit up. The following temple is the picture that I'll show you. You don't see much of the temple, but it is in Kyoto, and the family that's there is celebrating a certain holiday, and the holiday is called Jikosan. It means 7, 5, and 3. What they're celebrating is the health of their children. So they're going there, they're praying that their children will grow up healthy. So the girls celebrated ages 7 and 3, and the boys celebrated at age 5. So I was there in November, and this is when this holiday is celebrated. And they have a lot of holidays. One of the favorite ones that I like is at the end of the year. They take 2 or 3 days and they take all the stuff that they're not using and they give it away. And it's one of those things that they do every year at the end of the year. And one of the reasons they have to do this is they have small houses. If they live in the cities, the houses only have a living room, dining room, and kitchen, and bathroom. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, where do they sleep? Where are the bedrooms? They don't have bedrooms. They sleep in the living room. They push their furniture apart and they take mats out of the closets, lay them down, and they all sleep together in the living room. So I think this would be one thing that would really be hard for us to get used to in the United States, but they're very used to it there. So as our journey continued, we went towards Kyoto, but before we got there, we stopped in the hotel and it had hot springs. This is a picture of the hot springs. And they have 2 different kinds of hot springs, indoor and outdoor hot springs. Of course, this is the indoor one. The outdoor ones are very similar. And they even have these hot springs in the parking lots of grocery stores. Now, I couldn't believe this, but they're not full body, they're just for your feet. And I talked to a lady that lived there for 14 years. She said it's so refreshing coming out of the grocery store and then soaking your feet in this hot spring. When you're done, you're ready to go home and cook dinner. It's phenomenal. As our journey continued, we went to Hakone, and there is Mount Fuji. As you can see, it is one of those very impressive sights. And we were lucky because we could see the mountain, Sometimes people go there and they can't see it because it is so covered with clouds, but we were lucky and we saw it from several different vantage points. One of them was from a lake, and we also went up to the cable car and to the top of a mountain, looked out, saw Mount Fuji, and there were clouds at the bottom of it, so it looked like Mount Fuji was floating. It was kind of awesome. As we continued into Kyoto, we saw another temple, and you'll see this in the picture. And this is one of the most iconic temples in Japan. It's called the Golden Temple. And you see the reflection of it in the water and the leaves around it, and it is beautiful. There was another temple there, but it burned down, and in 1955 it was rebuilt. And this temple has gold leaf on it, and you can't imagine how much this temple would have cost, but it's a lot of money. But we were there in November and December, and the leaves were changing color, so it was really, really beautiful. Another thing in Kyoto is the bamboo forest, and this next picture will show you what the bamboo forests look like. They're just very heavenly. You see these big bamboo trees touching the sky. You're thinking, well, that's the way to heaven. Very beautiful. Another thing that we saw there was the cat cafe. When we went away from it, the cat cafe was on the side, and it's kind of funny when you think about, oh, what's a cat cafe? Well, people pay money by the hour to go in there, and then you can play with the cats and have refreshments. Very common there, but we have a few in the United States. There's one right on Lake Street. If you ever want to try it out, see what it's like, I recommend going there. The other thing that happened as we were leaving the bamboo forest was we saw a painter right on the edge of the river, and she was looking over a bridge onto the mountains and was painting a picture because everything was green and red and yellow, and it was gorgeous. So we continued our travels, and as we looked out of the bus, you could see the jagged mountains. So the picture is depicting what we saw from the bus, and I have to say 75% of the land in Japan is mountainous. So the 127 million people that live in Japan only live on 25% of the land. As we traveled, we went into countryside that was flatter, and in this next picture, you're going to see a country house, and it's right next to a rice paddy. So if you live in the country, you're going to have a bigger house, and you're going to have more space to spread out and grow your crops. So you have to decide if you're living there, do you want to live in the country or in the city? So as we traveled towards Tokyo, we stopped at Yokohama. And in this next picture, you're going to see some flowers, and they have a beautiful park there with a flower garden. This is just one picture, but they had the most beautiful roses, and I kept thinking, this reminds me of Portland. Portland has a beautiful rose garden as well, and I was reminiscing about how similar they were. We liked the park a lot because it had a big fountain in it. It was right along the water. If you looked across the water, you could see this beautiful skyline, and the people were so friendly. They come up and start talking to you, and they were walking their dogs, and their dogs all have little sweaters to put on them, so they're very cute. The next thing we did was we went to the Chinatown, which is a couple blocks away from the park. And you wonder, why is there Chinatown in Japan? But there are a lot of Chinese people that started living there at one point, and they built up this area, and the food there is phenomenal. So we were walking the streets, and all these scents were coming through, and we, of course, had to stop for lunch because there were so many options. You could get sushi, or you could get fried rice. There were a lot of other delicacies. They're well known for desserts, and one of the desserts that I really love, it's a jelly roll type thing with cream in it. So of course we had to have a little dessert on our excursion. After that, We went to Komakara, and this is where you see the giant Buddha. It is on top of the mountain and is one of those things that's very, very profound. I saw a giant Buddha very similar to this when I was in China, but this is, just inspiring. So if you're in Japan, make sure that you go see this Buddha. Then we made our way to Tokyo, and I have to say, it's very easy to travel in Tokyo because their transportation system is very good. We have buses and trains, and their trains, they have bullet trains. They can go up to 200 miles per hour, so you get to some places fast. They have subways, taxis, Ubers, and you can bike as well. So there's lots of different ways to get around the city. One of the places that we went to was a shopping area called Shibuya Crossing. And in this picture, you will see the lights and the traffic. It reminds me of Times Square. And if you go, make sure you go at night because they have a lot of lights. But you have to be careful when you are crossing. But they have a strategic way of doing this. What they do is all of the intersections are red at the same time. So people can cross any way they want to, plus they can go kitty corner. So there's people just crossing the streets en masse. Then when the people aren't going, that's when the cars start going. So it's either people or cars, it's not both. Another area is Ginza. I don't have a picture of this, but Ginza is the premier shopping area. So if you want to select some designer items to bring back to the States with you, this is where you'd want to go. They would have Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, but make sure that you have plenty of money when you go because you can drop a lot. Another place that I do have a picture of is Harajuku. And Harajuku, again, a very busy area. The famous street there is called Takashita Street. And this area is known to be the best shopping for the teens and the tweens. I loved it as well. I was walking through it with my daughter, and I said, this is the happiest place on earth. Everything was the sweetest, or the love area, or we have the best food. So you would walk down there and they're just delightful. But of course they cater to the young people, so it's going to be cell phones, the cell phone covers. It will be sunglasses. They have socks there with all different type of iconic things. Could be a unicorn, or could be a cat, or it could be a dog. And a lot of souvenirs, and they have costume shops. I was very impressed with all the costumes they have. And evidently, it's at times you'll see a lot of people that have costumes on, and they're not costumes, but just trendy fashions. We were there, we didn't see too many. We had these two girls in front of us at one time. They had fishnet stockings and matching backpacks that I thought were very cute. But Sundays are supposed to be the day to go see the people that are wearing all the trendy things. But you might see a few people on days that are not Sundays. After we walked down Takashita Street, then we went and did karaoke. Now, karaoke is very different in Japan than it is in the States. What you do is you walk in and you pay by the hour and you get your own room. So if you want to practice singing, you don't have to worry about anybody hearing you. You can just go ahead and belt out whatever you want. So we had a lot of fun with our group. We had about 6 people, and we sang for about an hour. It was great. And in Japan, sometimes they take clients to do karaoke just to have some fun. Another one of my favorite areas is Ueno Park. And in this next picture, you'll see me sitting in front of a fountain. And you see a little mist in there, so instead of having water squirting up out of the middle of the fountain, they have a mist that comes up the sides about every 10 minutes. It's quite unique. I've never seen anything like this, but Ueno Park is a place that you could spend a whole day. They have 3 or 4 museums. They have a zoo. They have a lot of flowers and trees, as well as a shrine and restaurants. So spend the day. They have famous exhibits. Monk was there, and several other artists. The Imperial Palace is very close to this, and this is another highlight of the trip. So they have a lot of gardens. Walk around the Imperial Gardens, and if you want to see the palace, then you'd have to make an appointment to do that. Going on to more shopping would be the fish market. Now you're saying, well, why would I want to shop in a fish market? Well, they have more than just fish there. They have all kinds of foods, but you can see them having the fish market and go early in the morning, and that's when they actually buy the fish from the wholesalers. You can watch them do that. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to go through the streets, one of the fun things to do is try out all the different foods. So maybe you could try out a dessert, one small little dessert that might be $1 or $2 at one stand. Then you go to the next stand and you buy something else. Kind of like going to the state fair and going to different stands and trying the food. And they don't only have food, they have clothes and dishes and souvenirs. So we found some great deals on dishes when we were there. Highly recommend it. The food in general in Japan is great, and there's so much to choose from. You have tempura, you have teriyaki. There is several different types of soups. One of them is ramen. And we did a lot of soup testing. The one thing that I really find hard is eating soup with chopsticks. Now I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to get these noodles wrapped around these chopsticks? But figured that out, and then I thought, well, how am I going to drink the soup? But you just lift the bowl up and sip it a little bit at a time. In this next picture, you'll see a girl who's got several different items on her tray. So that's one of the things that you can do, is you can buy a variety of foods and just try them out in the restaurants. One of the things that we did is we went to a tempura dinner, and we were served a 10-course meal, and that was a lot of fun. I would recommend doing that as well, but you do get a lot of food, so if you just want a little bit, it's probably way too much for you. Another place that we went to dine was called Memory Lane, and this is one of the historic areas in Tokyo. It's very tight, and the street is just a walking street, and I would say 2 or 3 people, or 4 maybe at the widest. But this is one of the areas that were preserved in Tokyo. A lot of Tokyo was burned, but this area was not. But what they did is they set up restaurants, and the restaurants maybe only hold 6 to 10 people. But they are well known, and even though it's small, it's not elegant. It's kind of reminds me of going to Mickey's Diner, but the food is tremendous, so give it a try. Another restaurant we went to was Robot Restaurant, and you'll see in this picture that it is very colorful. It's more of an entertainment place than it is a restaurant. They only gave us some fast food like chicken nuggets, but the entertainment was phenomenal. We had bright, colorful costumes to look at. The lights were phenomenal, and we had the robots, and they all came on floats, and they'd come right by you, so it was very intimate. And when the people were singing and dancing, they were making eye contact with you, and they could really see you well. There were lights in the background, big lit up screens, and when you came out of there, you were just thinking, wow, what a experience I just had. It wasn't the eating, it was just the sensory experience of the music and of the lights. Another thing that they did is they put the black light on, and they had like 6 or 7 dancers in the middle, and they were all doing robotic kinds of things. And that's another thing that I really enjoyed. We had a great time when we were in Japan. The people were so polite and kind. If you had any questions, people were ready to help you. Some of their values are honesty and cooperation. And it's quite a contrast to what we have in the United States, because in the United States we have individuality as one of our values. Where in Japan they work cooperatively, and I can see where they have to do that because it's such a small country, and they live close together and they have to cooperate. One of the things that the kids do in school to learn how to cooperate is they clean the school, or they work in the cafeteria helping cook and serve the food. So this, again, very different than the United States. Japan also has the longest living rate in the world. The average person lives the longest of any country in the world. And some of the things that contribute to that are they really respect their elders. They take care of them. They actually have a national holiday for respect for the aged. And a lot of the aged people live with their families, and they continue working after they actually retire. They help with childcare, or they work in the family business. They help around the house. So they continue to work even after they retire from their main job. So if you'll show the next picture, you'll see one of the elders there. She has such a bright smile. I think of her as a very loving, kind person just looking at this picture. She seems very, very happy. And the next picture that I have is of a geisha. And we didn't see too many geishas, but this one happened to be in the restaurant. Sometimes you can't tell when you're walking on the streets when people have kimonos on if they're geishas or not, because a lot of people just rent a kimono and they wear it, and so you don't know if that's actually a geisha or not. But you can pretty much tell. But they're quiet people, and they have just a way about them. So I highly recommend going to Japan. I can see why they picked Japan for the 2020 Olympics. It's easy to get around, and there's a lot of things to do there. There's so much more to see in Japan than what I talked about. I didn't touch on a lot of things, including Okinawa or Hiroshima. There are many, many more things to see. So they say that good things come in small packages, and I would have to say that is true for Japan. It has a lot to offer. It's the 3rd largest economy in the world. The people are packed with big smiles and kind hearts. It is very, very safe and beautiful. I'm going to wrap this up with a picture of my daughter and I in front of the temple. And we don't have our berets on, but she and I both bought berets. This was our souvenir that we brought from Japan. Even though we didn't buy a lot of souvenirs, we came back with a lot of memories that are going to last for a lifetime. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you want more information, check out my website at petersontravelpros.com. Sayonara from Judy Peterson.